Well, Heidi ho there. This is Caleb Jones. This is Alpha Male 2.0, and I don't normally cover topics like this, current events, politics, things like that. I don't really discuss these topics anymore. And this is not specifically about politics, although it will kind of nudge into that zone a little bit. And the reason I'm doing this video is to talk more about your overall worldview and your overall frame for the world. You can look at the world in a way where you feel angry and jealous and embrace scarcity, or you can look at the world and embrace abundance and possibility and happiness. And this is an example of this. So I'm going to talk about billionaires going to space. But that's really not the topic I'm discussing. The actual topic I'm discussing is your overall worldview and how it can make you pissed off and angry, or make you excited and happy, or more happy, as the case may be. So, as you may or may not know, a few weeks ago, Bezos and Branson went into outer space. These billionaires went into outer space. There was a big media blitz about this. And what I thought was very interesting is that I saw a lot of people on the internet, including some very famous people, Russell Brand included, we'll get to him in a second, mostly left-wing people, very angry about this. They were pissed off that there were people outside of the government actually going into outer space. And I stumbled across this Russell Brand video where he very conveniently for me summed up all the points that these left-wing people were making. So I'm going to respond to these points in this video here. This is not a response specifically to Russell Brand. I just happen to use this video because he, like I said, very conveniently summed up all the points that I had been seeing all over the internet about all these left-wingers or people who leaned left, furious that these billionaires are going to outer space. And it's an exact example of looking at the world in terms of scarcity and anger and jealousy instead of possibility and abundance. Now, what I'm going to do here as I respond to Russell's points is that I'm going to play him on 1.5 speed just to save your time a little bit. And I will just respond to his points as he goes along. Now, before I get into this, very important, two disclaimers I have to make, because I've been discussing topics like this on the internet for a very, very long time, and I can read your mind, some of you, and I know what kind of comments you'll make unless I make these two disclaimers. Number one, I'm about to attack a left-wing viewpoint. You're going to assume, at least some of you are going to assume, that I am a right-wing Donald Trump Republican conservative Christian. Wrong on all counts. If you are not familiar with my content, if you look back on my content, I've written about this extensively. Donald Trump supporters are completely irrational. Donald Trump was probably the second worst president in my lifetime, and I'm almost 50. I have never voted for a Republican in my entire life, and I never will. Conservatives, specifically the modern day version of what is called a conservative, are wrong on most topics. They are just as bad as left-wingers in most cases. So I am not a conservative. I am not a Republican. I don't like Donald Trump. I'm a libertarian. I'm a minarchist libertarian. I'm not an anarchist, but I'm a libertarian. And so I am uniquely qualified to criticize both the right, the modern day version of the right, which is not right, and the left from an objective standpoint instead of taking a team and picking team right or team left. Number one. Number two, I am not a fan of billionaires. I'm not. Most high-end billionaires like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Branson, a lot of these billionaires who are pursuing these space things, most high-end billionaires are products of the elites and products of government. They are not products of the capitalistic free market, which is what I am an advocate of. There are some very low-end billionaires who are entrepreneurial and capitalistic, guys who are worth maybe $1 billion or $2 billion. But once you get up into the 20 billion, 40 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion, you become a creature of the elites and a creature of government. So I am not a fan of billionaires. So this is not a defense of billionaires. It really isn't. I'm a fan of self-made millionaires. I'm a fan of people who go out into the private market, into the capitalistic free market, and work hard and make money without getting any free money or special favors from government, which doesn't describe most of these billionaires. So that's what I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of those guys. I'm not a fan of these high-end billionaires, so don't think I'm some kind of billionaire worshiper. I'm not. Also, there are things about Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Richard Branson that I don't like. There are things I don't like about these guys. I don't agree with them across the board. So I'm not one of these apologists or fans, these billionaires. I'm talking here about a way of thinking and a way of viewing the world, and that'll become more apparent as I go on. All right, let's play Russell Brand here. Oh, Russell Brand really quick. Russell Brand is no one in particular I like or dislike. He is the standard European socialist. He thinks there should be no such thing as profit. Pretty par for the course these days. So this is not a personal attack or a personal beef I have with Russell Brand. I think he's a smart guy. I've mentioned him on my blogs in the past. Like I said for the third time, he's just really good at summarizing these left-wing points of all these people angry at these billionaires going into outer space. And I'll respond to his points as we go on. Let's see what he has to say.
Branson's going to space, Musk's going to space, Bezos is going to space. I tell you, ain't going to space, you ain't going to space, but you are paying for other people to go to space in a variety of ways. Why is it so hard to see that these events that are presented as heroic endeavours actually have a very negative impact on ordinary people? Why does the media corroborate these dangerous new myths around billionaires, entrepreneurs, geniuses flying out into space, when actually, don't you remember, people were going to space ages and ages ago? Yuri Gagarin, that was like 60 years ago.
Right. So government astronauts were going to space many years ago. Have they lately? No. Do you see the United States government now, Western government sending a lot of astronauts into outer space lately? No, you don't. Who do you see? What countries do you see going to outer space? Dubai, my new home. We just sent an astronaut to outer space, I think, a year or two ago, right before COVID hit. You've got places like Kazakhstan going to outer space. So all these non-Western countries, China is all over space. You have all these non-Western governments going to outer space. You don't see a lot of Western governments going to in space anymore. What do you think that means? What do you think that portends? So good point. Yes, a long time ago, governments, Western governments, were going to space. They aren't anymore, by and large. I wonder why.
So what are we being told? What are we not being told? And what does the return of the space cowboy mean for ordinary folk like you and me?
He has set many global records. This was Richard Branson's attempt to achieve galactic ones.
Straight away, we're off. Richard Branson in a spacesuit, in sunglasses. There's no question that Richard Branson is a very intelligent person and a great business person. Rather than critiquing individuals, Bezos, Branson, Musk, let's look at the systems that underwrite their success and the way that this information is given to us. Because what we're being told and what we're being presented here is an intrepid and ingenious man. That might be true, but what...
Right, Russell, that's called branding and marketing. That's what entrepreneurs and business owners do. And I'm sure, Russell Brand, that you were involved in a lot of marketing when you did your Hollywood movies, weren't you? It's marketing, it's branding, it's something you need to do in business in order to stay in business. That's why I've said marketing is the most important function of your business. So yes, I would be surprised if they didn't use a lot of marketing and branding in these space excursions, because these are for-profit companies. Just like Hollywood was when you were doing your for-profit movies. Same exact thing. I don't know why you're upset about this. It's how the world works.
What's also true is that Richard Branson, hardly any time ago, was lobbying for a 500 million corporate bailout for Virgin at the start of the pandemic. Do you remember that? And do you remember
yes, I am 100% opposed to all corporate bailouts, all corporate welfare. I've discussed that ad nauseum in great detail on my blogs. I am a libertarian. No one should receive any money from government. Human beings, individuals should not get free money, billionaires should not get money, and businesses should not get money. So yes, I'm completely opposed to that. If you lobby for that, that fucking sucks. And that's my point about these high-end billionaires really not being products of the free market. They're really quasi-governmental entities, which is why I'm not a fan. So I agree on that one, yes. But that's really beside the point of them going into space. We'll talk about that in a second.
that Virgin Care sued the NHS last year after it lost out on an £82 million contract to provide children's health services in Surrey. What? You won't let us provide children's health services? We're going to sue you because we love children that much.
Yeah, again, another governmental entanglement. I agree, that's a problem. That's why I'm not a big fan of these high-end billionaires. They're too governmental for my taste. I agree.
See you in court. Also, it's worth remembering that Virgin Care paid no corporate tax in the UK. Healthcare campaigner Dr. John Lister.
Okay, so let me talk about that really fast. This is an entire topic in and of itself. I'm just going to gloss over this really quickly because I could do a whole video on that, and I don't discuss politics anymore, so I'm probably not. But what happens when rich people don't pay enough taxes is they say, well, that's not fair. We should raise their taxes. A famous case was Warren Buffett, who said that, I pay 4% taxes, but my secretary pays 28% taxes. That's not fair. And the implication from that statement is that obviously we need to raise taxes on rich people. No, that is the exact opposite of how you should think about this. If a rich person is paying few taxes and an average middle class person is paying a lot of taxes, the correct answer is we should reduce the taxes of the average person down to what rich people pay. So if rich people pay 0 taxes or 4% in taxes, that is totally unfair that you as a middle class person pays 50, 60, 70% taxes. You should also pay no taxes or 5% taxes. That's the correct response. It just shows you where the world is When they show this tax disparity, their immediate response is, well, let's make it horrible like everyone else for the rich people. No, let's make it good for everyone else like the rich people have it. I can do a whole thing on that. I won't. You get my point.
Accused Branson's Virgin Healthcare Group of playing a parasitic role in the NHS, fragmenting services and poaching NHS-trained staff and undermining nearby NHS trust.
Okay, none of that is relevant to the topic we're discussing here about billionaires going to space. He's just ranting now. He's just pissed off because he doesn't like these people. Completely irrelevant to the topic.
You have to look at the totality of this story. The way that these endeavours are funded is in part through the evasion of corporate tax, through lobbying to change government policy, and avoiding the kind of responsibilities that if you tried to avoid it, you wouldn't be.
Again, I agree. That's why I don't like this. There is definitely some government money involved in these endeavors. I don't like it. I agree.
Going to space, you'd be in a different.
But that doesn't change my overall point, which you'll see at the end of this video.
Kind of shuttle altogether, shuttled off for 10 to 20.
His walk to the VSS Unity rocket ship, the steps of a man on the cusp of a lifetime's dream.
By focusing on Richard Branson's individual pursuits and successes, what's being obscured by this media reporting is literally what's really happening. This is from Mother Jones. Like fellow billionaires Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who have recently captured headlines for their own privately financed space programs, Branson runs a very big business. He's been trying for 2 decades to get a space tourism endeavor to get off the ground, catering mainly to people like him, the extremely wealthy. Musk will charge $55 million to take a passenger to the International Space Station, and Bezos will charge $28 million, but will also sit next to the paying passenger himself. Fucking hell! Listen, I accept $28 million is a lot of money. Cozy up, buddy boy. It's worth every penny.
All right, here's the crux of one of the arguments these left-wingers are giving. This is terrible, this isn't fair because only rich people are allowed to do this. Let me explain to you how economics works and how technology works. Whenever a new technology is introduced into society, generally speaking, there are rare exceptions, and you could point out the rare exceptions, but the exceptions prove the rule. But generally speaking, the vast majority of the time, when a new technology is introduced into society, who gets to use that technology first? Everybody? Poor people? Middle class people? They get it first? No, rich people get it first. Then over time, within 10 years, 15 years, everyone else gets it. But yes, rich people get it first. Do I like that? No, but I would rather have the technology than not have it, even if rich people get it 10 years before me. For example, I grew up in the 1980s when cell phones were invented. Do you think one day cell phones were invented and everybody had an iPhone? No. First, it was rich people who got the phones first. And if you are my age or older, you remember people's reaction in the 80s when all these rich people got these car phones. They called them car phones. They were actually phones in the car with a wire in the dashboard, and they used it in the car. And then later, it was those big brick phones or these phones attached to these suitcases. And people, just like Russell Brand, just like all these left-wingers angry these billionaires are going to space and rich people are going to space, people were all pissed off. Why do these fucking rich people have to have these phones? That's bullshit. But 10 years later, 10 to 15 years later, those same people bitching about those evil rich people using those new cell phones were using the phones themselves. They had the same technology. I've used the example once of my own mother, but I've heard other people say this, or I heard other people say this back in the 80s. She would talk about how, back in the 80s when rich people had these phones, she said, and a lot of other people said, you think you're so fucking important? You can't wait until you get home to make a phone call? Oh, Mr. Rich Person, you're so important. You have to take the call in your car because you're so important. I heard that nonstop in the 80s, and if you're my age or older, you did too. And 10 to 15 years later, after people like my mom were saying that, my mom was on her cell phone while driving around more than anyone else in the family. You see how this works? This is normal. This is how society works. If you hate that, that's fine. But I want to ask you a question. Take a technology that now doesn't exist that you really want. You could pick whatever you want. Let's pick something simple. A flying car, all right? You want a flying car. Let's say you had 2 options. Option 1 was Bill Gates gets a flying car before you do. He gets it 15 years before you do, okay? And he gets in his flying car and he flies around and he films himself doing it. Says, isn't this fucking awesome? I'm rich, I'm Bill Gates, I get a flying car and you don't. And he flies by your house or your apartment and he flips you off from his flying car. Say, ha ha, I have a flying car and you don't. And he flies away. But 15 years later, you're guaranteed to get a flying car yourself. You are guaranteed to get a flying car yourself. It's within your affordability to buy a flying car and you get one too. So you have to watch Bill Gates get one before you, and then 15 years later, you get a flying car. That's option 1. Option 2, you never get a flying car ever. 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 Because we don't allow billionaires to do it because billionaires are assholes. I don't know about you, I'd pick option one, and I'd pick it literally every time. Every technology you can think of. Longevity, anti-aging, remapping genomes, sex robots, you name the technology that doesn't exist right now or doesn't exist well. I would rather have the rich people get it first and then I get it than me never getting it. In that scenario, if those are the only two options I have, and usually they are with rare exception, then I want the rich people to get them first, because that means within a year or two or 10 years or 15 years or 20, I get the same thing. So all these left-wingers furious that rich people shouldn't do this are basically saying no one should do this, or in some cases they say or imply no one except government should do this. Wrong attitude across the board, and that's the main topic of this video.
Pay another $5 million to touch your leg? Go on, put it there. You can have this one for free. For all their iconoclasm, daring do, and technical wizardry, Musk, Bezos, and Branson are accomplishing their takeover of a government space program the same way their rivals in the defense industry have always done it, by lobbying. So they're taking control of government policy through lobbying. Another one of those things that don't you think should just be banned? That don't have lobbying anymore. Don't have that people that are working in healthcare make profits from it. That drug companies can't make a profit from anything in healthcare.
Oh my God. All right, 2 points. Lobbying, number one. I've mentioned this in my blogs too, back when I used to talk about politics. Left-wingers and a lot of right-wingers say we got to get money out of politics. We can't have lobbying anymore. A better answer is to not give government the power to give power to lobbyists in the first place. Do you think that a lot of people were pissed off about money in politics back in the 1800s? No. Why is that? Because back in the 1800s, the federal government was tiny and couldn't do anything. So no one gave a shit. So you didn't have all these mobs of lobbyists flood Washington, D.C. back in, 1842. You didn't have that because big government wasn't big, it was tiny, it couldn't do anything. Keep government small, and then lobbyists won't bother with it, number one. Number two, he just said that, and this is a common left-wing complaint, medical companies, pharmaceutical companies should never make a profit. If they never made a profit, you would now be dying from things like polio and the flu. Penicillin and things like that were invented for the most part. Yes, there are exceptions. I'm sure you're going to have left-wingers point out exceptions in the comments, but the exceptions prove the rule. Most of these modern day drugs that cure these diseases today were created because the owner, the creator, made money. If you say to the world, look, if you invent something new, you don't get any money, fuck you. You will see the number of new cures and drugs that help people and help quality of life plummet like that. You need to let people make money on these things, and then again, everyone uses them. Now again, there are exceptions to that, but those are the exceptions. Just watch what happens if you live in a society where no one can make any money by inventing any new pill or any new drug. You will see innovation collapse like you've never seen before in your life. That would be a dreadful nightmare world to live in. And again, I don't like it that a few rich people make $1 bazillion from a new drug. I don't like that, but I'd rather have access to that drug, and my loved ones have access to that drug if they need to cure a problem or live longer or have a higher quality of life, and put up with the rich asshole for a while.
Imagine how that would change the mentality. Oh, all of the geniuses won't bother. If they can't go to space, then we're not going to work. Well, I don't want people.
Right, correct, Brussels. He just said it.
People in charge that won't work unless they get shot off to fulfill their boyhood dreams in a space rocket. That's childish.
That's not an answer. That is not an argument, Russell. I'm sorry.
Childish way to run a country. Can you see that the media are cooperating in the creation of a dangerous myth? The myth being, we need these great, powerful, real-life Tony Starks to go out to space to build us a future. We can't build a future collectively through our collective talents and our collective beauty and ingenuity. No, we're useless scumbags who...
That's correct. We can't. Communism doesn't work. I'm sorry. Socialism also doesn't work long-term. Short-term it does. Long-term socialism doesn't work either. We cannot collectively build spaceships. Has that ever happened before? Have you seen a truly communist society build spaceships? What about Sputnik? That wasn't a truly communist society. And how well did that country do as compared to the United States in terms of the space race? They got there first, but how well did they do overall? Yeah, this doesn't work. And by the way, that wasn't a collective endeavor. That was a government endeavor. The space program from the Soviet Union. That was a government endeavor. That was not a collective endeavor. So yes, Russell, that is how this works. You need pioneers to do this, generally speaking, in most cases.
Can't participate in the creation of these brave new utopias. You just sit back quietly. And if you can't afford 28 million or 55 million to go off to space and hold hands with a billionaire as you look down at the other and think, oh my God, what's happening to that rainforest? Then shut your mouth, sit down quietly and consume this crap and believe these stories.
Wrong. You will participate in space. As a matter of fact, you know what the irony of this fucking thing is, as I talked about earlier? How much you want to bet that in 10 to 20 years, Russell Brand will be on the moon? Russell Brand will be in space. Keep this video. I will keep this video somewhere on the internet as long as I can, decades down the road. That will be fantastic to watch the irony of Russell Brand, who is a rich person, by the way, being in outer space when he says right now no one can participate except these billionaires. No one can participate right now. Watch what happens in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Normal people will be able to participate. What he just said is wrong and or a lie if he knows the actual scenario. Maybe he does. Russell Brand's not stupid, and a lot of these left-wingers aren't stupid people. I think a lot of them know that eventually normal people will be able to buy plane tickets or space tickets into outer space. But they say they won't, or they imply, oh, you're not going to participate. Wrong. Incorrect, factually wrong.
A milestone for Richard Branson personally, but also one for commercial space. The emerging market of space tourism has a genuine success story.
Oh, that's nice. Thank God for space tourism. Don't worry, that we've got all manner of ecological crises to deal with. Inequality, poverty, division, fragmentation. No matter who you are, how you identify, or what group you feel like you belong to, baffled and crushed under the pervasive pressure of living under lies and faith-based illusory economic systems. Don't worry about that, because
rich people donate more money to charity than poor people or middle-class people. I'm sorry, it's true. Now, I can't speak for the high-end billionaires, but even most high-end billionaires will do more for the world in terms of donating to charity than people with no money or people in the middle class. This argument about, well, what about all these other problems? I promise you, I don't know this for sure, so maybe someone can correct me or verify this in the comments, that Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos have been responsible for donating a shitload of money to charity. More than you or I will ever be able to donate in our entire lives. Again, I will repeat, I am not a fan of these high-end billionaires, but I am a fan, a huge fan, and I always have been, of self-made people who make a lot of money. Self-made rich people, not government-made rich people, not rich people who inherit all their money from their mommy and daddy. I was in neither category. I have always respected self-made rich people, and that was true even when I was in my early 20s and I had no money myself, and I could barely put gas in my car, I could barely pay my electric bill, but I respected men who made a lot of money through their own efforts. And those men, statistically speaking, donate shitloads more money than normal people do. So again, what he's saying is meaningless.
the commercial space business is booming. And all it took was for the companies involved to not have to pay any corporate tax, for governments to create policies that advance them, and for space programs that were sort of once a matter of national pride to be abandoned and lost.
So Rich,
why were the space programs abandoned and lost? Why were the governmental space programs abandoned and lost? I suggest, Russell, you do some research and find out why these programs were abandoned and lost. They were boondoggles, people got killed, government's fucking incompetent, government didn't know what the fuck they were doing, the Western world is in a state of collapse, and a bunch of other reasons. So someone needs to pick up the slack, and it's gonna have to be these billionaires. Is it gonna be you? Is it gonna be me? No, it's gonna have to be them.
Richard Branson, astronaut. With his new astronaut wings, Richard Branson was back on the ground, but over the moon. His space triumph, part bucket list, part marketing bonanza.
You're being encouraged to be an idiot. That's what I think offends me most of all. I'm offended by the invitation to idiocy. I'm offended by the way that I'm being given this information like I'm a little dumb child. And in fact, let's face it, in most educational institutions, and certainly through media, these ideas are embedded so that you have to sort of grasp at and personally conjure a kind of critical ability so that when you see this stuff, you're not swept up in it. Richard Branson, for all I know, might be a really, really nice person with good intentions. In fact, my spiritual beliefs lead me to believe that all people are. But the idea that we're invited to celebrate...
Good for you, I like that, that's good. I have similar spiritual beliefs.
...celebrate the individual triumphs and potential commercial triumphs of a small group of people while there are so many problems in the world that need immediate addressing. And
okay, let me go back to what he said about a minute ago. He didn't like being treated like a child. I also don't like the mainstream media fawning over all this shit. I agree, I don't like it. But again, in terms of marketing and branding, that's what you have to do in order to make money and accomplish results in the real world. That's how it works. It's either that or communism, which we know for a fact doesn't work. I'd rather take the flawed system of capitalism, free market capitalism, libertarian capitalism, not corporatism, which the United States has now, but capitalism. I'd rather take that with all of its problems than communism or corporatism, which are much worse.
So many potential solutions that are being continually ignored, precisely so we can continue to bolster these narratives. It's offensive. We ought to be offended by it. Whatever it is that makes you want to mobilize and get out on the street and wave a placard and create...
Rich people or billionaires are not ignoring these other problems. That is incorrect.
new systems and resist the current ones, surely we can all join together in understanding that we have more in common with one another, no matter what cultural or ideological differences we might have, than we do with the people that are actually making decisions. And what bothers me most of all is this is a sort of a potent punch in the face, a sort of illicit kind of ongoing idiocy to keep you punch drunk on dumb, stupid myths, presenting you with like space travel as a solution.
What a day, what a day, what a day, what a day. Takeoff to touchdown, the roughly hour-long flight seemed picture perfect, about the size of an executive jet.
Yeah, executive jet size, is it good? You know, like, oh yeah, for when you're look, I ain't lying to you. I'm like a person that's lived privileged lifestyles. I'm born in a normal house, in a normal background. I've been on private jets and stuff like that before. And perhaps I speak from a position of privilege in so much as I have been near this stuff and experienced this stuff and met these people. And I'm here to tell you, this isn't the answer for individuals. It's not the answer for a culture. All of us, including perhaps Richard Branson himself, are being invited to engage in a mad illusion when perhaps collectively together we could create actual solutions. And those solutions...
Russell, you're going to have to explain to me exactly how we collectively come together and build spaceships and go to Mars. Now, either it's some kind of Disney communist fantasy or it's big government. Well, if big government was able to do it, the United States, as I've shown the numbers on my blogs many times, is the biggest big government in all of human existence, all of human history. The United States government, pre-cerveza sickness, spent $7.9 trillion a year when you add up federal, state, and local spending. So if any government was going to get us to space immediately in terms of big government, it should have been the United States. And for some reason it wasn't. So we tried that option. It didn't work. We're going to have to do these billionaires.
Might not involve going in an executive jet, looking at a planet. That's a place I won't pay tax in. That's another place I lobbied for privileges in.
Unity carried Branson and 5 other people.
Release, release, release.
At roughly 45,000 feet, this spectacular image.
It's like a marketing exercise. It's got Virgin written on its belly, you know. The
Right, you need to market.
news are cooperating in a marketing exercise for big business. That's all that's happening. How can you trust the same news when they tell you anything? They're plainly showing you what their agenda is, who their alliances are with, what incentivizes them, what their imperatives are. So how can you trust them? You know, an advert will crop up somewhere during this video, you know, that'll be for whatever random thing the algorithm slings your way. I accept that as part of reality and the limitations within which we live. But when we are trying to evolve and sculpt new ideologies, let's do it with a clear head, not drunk on the bamboozlement of billionaire bonanzas booting off into space just for an advertising opportunity.
Okay, now he's sort of ranting. I might fast forward the video and or edit this video to get to his real points if he has them. Maybe he's out of points.
Into Space Unity 22.
For several minutes, everyone inside experienced microgravity mega thrills.
That does look like a laugh, and I would like to experience zero gravity, but on the list of priorities, I read somewhere, my missus really actually told me, the money people spend on their hobbies could solve poverty in America. So, like, whilst it does look fun to float airlessly, here I am floating in a tin can, to live out the lyrics of Major Tom, I'd rather live out the lyrics of Imagine. I'd rather live out the lyrics of greater ideals. Like, whilst this is being presented as the vanguard, as ingenuity, as exploratory, this is chimpanzee idiocy. Hey, look at what the alpha chimps are doing. These are floating in space, baby. I get something to eat. Afraid there's no money. No money for any actual food. But up there, while you're delirious with hunger, eyes rolling back in your head, comfort yourself with the knowledge that somewhere 56 miles above your head, there's a space wanker having the time of their lives.
To all you kids down there, I was once a child with a dream. To the next generation of dreamers, if we can do this, just imagine what you can do.
Very little, because all of the money and resources is being hoovered up into a capsule, a vacuum of power held in privilege. Note the casting of the astronauts to distract you from that truth. Capitalism, whatever it may be, is not an opportunity for everybody. I'm not like a let's all go and be Soviet-style communists. This is why I suggest that you have power and possibility in your life, that you remove the privileges. Not like a let's all go and be whatever it may be, is not an opportunity for everybody. I'm not like a let's all go and be Soviet-style communists.
You're not? I've seen you say that we shouldn't have profit. So what's up with that?
This is why I suggest that you have power and possibility in your life, that you remove the privileges that allow this kind of stuff to happen. The lobbying, the avoidance of payment of tax. That's it. Like, you know, just those things. In a sort of a free capitalist, you know, encourage entrepreneurs and geniuses to do their thing. Okay, well, can they still do it if they pay tax and if they're not allowed to lobby and influence government policy? So the ordinary children that are being addressed in this mad piece of PR do have possibility and opportunity. You know, like...
I agree with half of that. They shouldn't lobby government. I agree. Government shouldn't be big enough where they can lobby things to get things done. In terms of taxes, they should pay low taxes, and you and I should also pay low taxes. You only need about 4 or 5, 6% flat tax to fund the constitutional functions of government.
How about saying from space, to all you children down there for whom we provide health services in Surrey, we're going to be suing the NHS and not paying any corporate tax. That's also true, you know.
All right, so the rest of the video, he basically repeats the points. I think you get my point here. Because we live in a quasi-capitalistic world, we really don't, but it's quasi. Because communism doesn't work, And because big government is too incompetent to invent certain technologies, the only other option we have is to rely upon rich people, sometimes asshole rich people we don't like, to invent new technologies that they get first and we don't get, but we eventually do get. And if your argument is we shouldn't allow these rich people to do this, or these rich people shouldn't do this, then what you're arguing for is technological stagnation. You're arguing for a society that never or rarely advances in any way technologically, and hoping that someday communism or collectivism or big government will invent all these wonderful technologies. Sometimes they do. I'm not saying there has never been an invention that government was behind that worked. There are exceptions to every rule, but the exception proves the rule. And all of these arguments come from a mindset of scarcity and jealousy. If your overall mindset when you look at the world is scarcity and or jealousy, you will never be happy. And here at Alpha Male 2.0, we teach long-term masculine happiness, which means you can't look at the world like that. When you look at rich people and go, "Arr," you're never going to be happy because the world is full of rich people, even in socialistic, communistic societies. It's how human beings were designed. Instead, you should look at those rich people who are there because of their own hard work, not because of government and not because of inheritance, but their own hard work, and ask yourself, how did they get there and how can I do the same thing? That's it. And it's your choice. You can decide how you want to view the world or not. I know how I want to view it. It's up to you.